From stories across the world to stories here at home, this is the National News Broadcast. A very good evening to you. I'm Nitya Sarakchandra.
A very good evening to you indeed. I'm Shehar Herat. Now let's first have a look at the headlines for tonight.
The President says all presidential candidates should clearly present their policy on environmental conservation. The national television bags the Gold Award for investigatory environmental reporting at the Presidential Environmental Awards. Minister Sajith Premadasa says contribution of youth will be obtained in the forward march of the country while opening opportunities for them. Presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa says he will uplift agriculture and empower the farmer. Voting to be extended by 1 hour at the forthcoming presidential election. The government notifies the public that the luxury tax imposed on motor vehicles will not be relevant to small motor vehicles. India bids farewell to baby Sujit Wilson, whose unfortunate accident shocked the world.
Now in your top story this evening, President Maithripala Sirisena says that the presidential candidates should clearly present their policies on environmental conservation in their election manifestos and pledges to the public. He made these remarks while speaking at the Presidential Environmental Award ceremony today. National Television's Nishadi Bandaranaike won the Gold Award for investigative environmental reporting. Presidential Environmental Award Ceremony 2019 was held at the Nelupokuna Theatre this morning under the patronage of the President. 20 various categories were considered for the awards and Gold Awards were presented with 12 categories. The Gold Award for Investigative Environmental Reporting for Electronic Media was presented to news producer of the National Rupavahini, Nishadi Bandaranaike. The award was presented for the investigative environmental reporting carried out during the previous year. The annual award ceremony is organized with the aim of public participation for environmental conservation and to create an environmentally friendly industry and business culture.
Winners and the winner is Nishadi Bandaranaike.
President Maithripala Sirisena said that environmental conservation is vastly important when defining development. He said that he is yet to hear the policies of the presidential candidates on environmental conservation thus far. He said that the presidential candidates should prioritize the policies on environment in their respective election manifestos. The president emphasized the importance in protecting the present environmental conditions in the country by all beings. He said that the Presidential Environmental Award ceremony was organized with the aim to bring the attention of the general masses on the commitment and will to safeguard the environment.
ඒ සඳහා කැප වෙන්නයි ඒ සඳහා අධිෂ්ඨානශීලී වෙන්නයි ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම ජනාධිපති සම්මාන මේ විදිහට දෙන්නේ සෑම කෙනෙකුටම ඒ සඳහා අවශ්‍ය අවබෝධය නිසා.
The Central Environmental Authority presented a special award to President Maithripala Sirisena for his immense services rendered by him as the Minister of Environment.
And now a number of projects launched for the prevention of kidney diseases and for the welfare of the kidney patients were vested with the public by President Maithripala Sirisena today. The President joined in the ceremonies from the Presidential Secretariat via video conferencing. The Economic Welfare and Educational Information Centre constructed attached to the Girandurkote District Hospital in Badulla to empower kidney patients was first declared open. The cost involved has been 89 million rupees. In addition, 9 water filtering systems built in the Anuradhapura, Puttalam, Kurunegala and Kandy districts was also vested in the public. These projects have been completed upon funding by the Presidential Task Force on the Prevention of Kidney Disease and by donations received from the philanthropists. The Sri Lanka Navy contributed with its labour. Meanwhile, the epistle declaring the Shrine of Our Lady of Madhu in Mana district sacred site was presented by the President to the Bishop of Mana, Emmanuel Ferdinandra. The Presidential Secretariat today The Madhu shrine, which is revered by Christians, also attracts devotees of Hindu and Buddhist faiths. Steps have also been taken upon the instructions of the President to develop the Madhu shrine and the surrounding areas under a special project.
Now, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has extended his congratulations to the President of the United States and the military on the successful operation against the leader of the Islamic State group, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe in his message notes the weakening of the ISIS terror outfit through a successful operation carried out in the Idlib area in northern western Syria last Saturday, constituted to making the world a safer place. This operation can be regarded as a successful operation launched against one of the most ruthless terrorists in the world. The Premier called to mind Sri Lanka too waged a 3-decade-long war against the LTTE terror group. Therefore, the Premier observed the Sri Lankans have a good understanding of the detrimental effect terrorism has on the general public and on the democratic framework. Calling to mind with gratitude the contribution given by the US in defeating the LTTE, the Premier noted implementations to counter the funding of terrorism and the prohibition of weapons are highly appreciated by the government and the people of Sri Lanka.
And now the presidential candidate Sajith Premadasa vested with the public his social agreement with the youth of Sri Lanka at the Sugatadasa Indoor Stadium last evening. The charter has been titled Tharunye Parivartanaya, the transformation of the youth. Minister Sajith Premadasa stated that he will dedicate himself to obtain the contribution of young people in the forward march of the country, opening opportunities for youth to sharpen their talents. The objective of the Youth Charter is to detail to relevant stakeholders a practical framework on focused objectives, responsibilities and rights and infrastructure needed to proceed along the future direction to plan to empower the youth force. The New Democratic Front presidential candidate Sajith Premadasa stated on this historic day, the Youth Charter which is being signed will be written in golden letters. In the history books of Sri Lanka, he further stated, when this Youth Charter is passed into law, the youth that tallied behind political giants will be delivered from the slavery of the powerful and we will be able to hold their heads high and emerge as excellent performers of society. He invited all citizens to extend their support to him to create a prosperous Sri Lanka through the new era which will take shape after the 16th of November.
Presidential candidate of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Gotabaya Rajapaksa says he intends to invest a large sum in the agricultural sector to uplift the farmer. He expressed these views participating at a rally held in the Bipila area. Presidential candidate of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Gotabaya Rajapaksa says he has focused special attention in his manifesto on agriculture. He says fertilizer will be provided free of charge. He also notes farmers are indebted due to various reasons. He says he will write off all farmer debts. He also says he will improve new technology for the agricultural sector. He pledged to introduce an insurance scheme and a pension scheme for the farmers. He also intends to reduce the taxes in the agriculture sector and invest large sums in agriculture.
Now, presidential candidate of the National People's Power parliamentarian Anura Kumara Dissanayaka says that certain candidates are not at all concerned on the economic, educational, health and transport sectors of the country. He expressed these views participating at a rally held in the Mandaramwala area in Matale yesterday. Presidential candidate of the National People's Power parliamentarian Anurukumara Dissanayaka stated that the existing issue on security is being exaggerated. He notes when the April 21st attacks transpired, one individual stated that if he's there, the attacks would not have taken place. 2 days after the incident, the individual declares candidacy. After another 2 days, the individual says that he will defeat extremism. MP Dissanayaka notes even though it may not be able to detect who has a gun in possession, when the haunted animals are being carried on the hunter's shoulder, it is evident that who laid the trap. MP Dissanayaka noted that public security has become the foremost banner in the presidential race, whilst other topics are not touched on. He notes that there is no proper discussion on the economy, democracy, a strong foreign policy, uplifting of education, and bringing about national reconciliation.
Now, the election manifesto of the independent presidential candidate MLAM Hezbollah was launched in Colombo yesterday. The manifesto has been composed based on many fields of public interest, including unity of the country and national security. His election manifesto includes an economic program on achieving sustainable development, uplifting of education sector, issues concerning lands and properties, our rights, heritage, traditional arts, culture and ethics and morals, and reviving all communities who have been disappointed due to clashes in the past. Meanwhile, a public meeting of presidential candidate of Frontline Socialist Party Duminda Nagamua was held in Piliandala yesterday. Presidential candidate of the Frontline Socialist Party Duminda Nagamua said the law of the country was not implemented against the captains of the central bank bomb scam. However, he noted that fellow party member Kumar was imprisoned for 1 year. He questioned as to whether any other group of unfortunate citizens live in this era. He also noted the framing community in the Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa districts are burdened with debt and are even committing suicide. He also pointed out development officers have not been paid their salaries over 2 months, and he concluded his party has the responsibility to introduce a plan to direct the people of the country into a proper political vision. Independent presidential candidate P.S.R. Vijayanagara gave a special manifesto to the national television regarding his election manifesto. Independent presidential candidate P.S.R. Vijayanagara challenges any contestant to come for a live debate to compare his manifesto with other manifestos.
Now, the distribution of official polling cards for the forthcoming presidential election is reportedly progressing successfully. The sub-post officers are distributing the polling cards amongst the residents of the voters, and the distributing officers need to obtain the signatures of the occupants confirming receipt of the polling cards. The postmaster say that it will be possible to complete the distribution of the polling cards within the next 2 days. District election officers assisting this task handed over the polling cards to the post officers for distribution recently. Postmaster General Ranjit Aryaratna says that 15,992,096 polling cards need to be distributed across around 6 million households. Out of these, 247 polling cards were distributed yesterday. The distribution of polling cards will be underway until the 9th of November. The Postmaster General says if voters have not received their polling cards by the 9th of November, they need to approach their regular post office, prove their identity and obtain their respective polling cards. Meanwhile, postal voting of the presidential election will take place on the 31st of October and the 1st of November. Postmaster General Ranjit Aryaratna says 659,514 ballot papers for postal voting have been received in packets for distribution. Out of these packets containing 658,793 ballot papers have been distributed, whilst another 721 still needs to be distributed. The distribution activities are continuously underway to enable postal voting to take place on the given dates.
Now, the Elections Commission has decided to extend the voting hours of the forthcoming presidential election until 5 p.m. This decision was announced at a discussion held with political party representatives today. This is the third round of discussions held between political party representatives and officials of the Elections Commission after the presidential election was announced.
And now the Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Cheng Yuan, says Sri Lanka holds the ownership and security of the Hambantota port and China is only involved in an investment process. Speaking at a media briefing held today, he stated that his intention is to set aside misconceptions on China-Sri Lanka affairs. A media observational tour was conducted today on a number of large-scale development projects underway in Colombo. The Colombo Port City, the International Container Terminal and the Lotus Tower were inspected on this tour. The Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka and a group of representatives joined the event. At a media briefing held at the Lotus Tower after the inspection, the Chinese ambassador expressed his views on a number of points that have caused misconceptions. He pointed out through the projects launched by China in Sri Lanka, it is the Sri Lankans who will benefit from the most number of projects and employment opportunities will be on offer. He further stated that Chinese nationals will not be deployed in large numbers on the projects launched in Sri Lanka. He also emphasized that there is no truth in views circulating across certain Western media outlets alleging that Sri Lanka has been caught in a Chinese debt trap. And now on related stories, President Maithripala Sirisena stated that the Port City project was a valuable and important investment for the long-term economic development of the country. The President stated that he believes that the project would attract massive foreign investments. The Colombo Port City land deed was handed over in the presence of President Maithripala Sirisena and Chinese Ambassador Cheng Yuan at the Presidential Secretariat today. The land grant was first handed over to the Urban Development Authority and the UDA handed over the land under a lease agreement to Czech Port City, Colombo. The President stated that when his government came into power in 2015, it took immediate steps to renegotiate the Colombo Port City Agreement to ensure that Sri Lanka's sovereignty was not adversely affected by the land transfer. During the discussions, the two parties could arrive at a mutually acceptable agreement to ensure that the land rights would remain with Sri Lanka. And he stated while the UDA retains land ownership, the land extent was leased to a Czech Port City Colombo Private Limited and land grant was handed over by the Secretary of the Ministry of Megapolis and Western Development Nihal Rupasinghe to the UDA Director General SSP Ratnayaka in the presence of the President Maithripala Sirisena and Chinese Ambassador Cheng Yuan. Later, the UDA DG handed over the lease agreement to the Managing Director of Czech Port City Colombo Private Limited, Secretary to the President Uday R. Seneviratne and Secretary to the Ministry of Lands and Parliamentary Reforms W.H. Karunaratne was also present at this occasion.
Now, the Ministry of Finance says the luxury tax imposed on motor vehicles will not be relevant to small motor vehicles. Upon the amendments incorporated in the Monetary Act as proposed in the 2019 budget, the luxury tax will only be imposed when importing luxury cars and jeeps. Small cars will not fall under the new tax. Vehicles such as vans, single cabs, double cabs, motorcycles and motor tricycles are also not subjected to this luxury tax. The luxury tax will only be imposed when importing diesel and petrol cars and jeeps worth over 3.5 million rupees, only for the amount exceeding this limit. The luxury tax is effective from the 6th of March 2019 and the new tax will apply to all luxury vehicles imported after opening letters of credit after this date. There will be a luxury tax for hybrid vehicles when their CIF value exceeds 4 million rupees, whilst electric vehicles, the amount is 6 million rupees. As technology for automobiles develop, the luxury of a vehicle is determined not by engine capacity but by the features of the vehicles. The chargeability of this tax is now based on the price of the vehicle instead of the engine capacity. Accordingly, the tax is levied on the cylinder capacity of petrol cars below 1,800 cylinder. The tax is levied on diesel cars and jeeps below 2,300 cylinders, and the taxes on the electric cars below 200 kilowatts will be lifted from November.
And now the governor of the southern province, Hemal Gunasekara, says that all schools in the Hambantota district and the Mulatiana education zone in Mathura will remain closed tomorrow due to the inclement weather experienced these days. The atmospheric disturbance in the sea areas of the southwest of the island has developed into a low pressure system. The Met Department forecasts heavy rainfalls in the sea areas from Trincomalee to Puttlam via Hambantota and Galle. Thunder showers could occur in the northern, north central, northwestern and central provinces in the evening tomorrow. The Disaster Management Centre advises the public to be vigilant on the risks of landslides. 4 spill gates of the Rajangana tank and 2 spill gates of the Tamuttegama Ambangamwa tank have been opened. 3 spill gates of the Murutavela tank in Hambantota have been opened. Therefore, residents in the low-lying surrounding areas say that a flood threat is present. A land mound reportedly collapsed in the Ginigalkanda area in Balapitia. The fisher folk have also refrained from venturing out to the sea due to roughness of sea along the coast of the Batiklo district. And a flood situation has been reported in Ambalantota and Hambantota areas. A number of areas are reportedly inundated.
Now, the Supreme Court has extended to the 10th of December the injunction suspending the decision taken by the President to implement the death penalty. Several parties had filed 15 fundamental rights petitions calling on the court to issue an order preventing the implementation of the death penalty on inmates who have been served the death sentence upon being found guilty on drug-related offences. The petition was taken up before the 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court comprising Justices Bhuvanekalu Vihara, Esther Raja and Gamini Amarasekara. The attorney representing the Bar Association of Sri Lanka said he has forwarded a request to the Chief Justice to have this petition taken up for examination before a full-judge bench. The 3-judge bench, upon recording this request, ordered that the request be forwarded to the Chief Justice for the decision to be taken on hearing the petition before a full-judge bench. Also, meanwhile, the attorney appearing on behalf of the Attorney General stated, as per the Constitution, the Supreme Court does not have the jurisdiction to examine this petition.
And now bringing you market details. The All Shares Price Index closed at 5,964.25 points, dropped by 18.17 points, and the S&P SL 20 Index closed at 2,951.39 points, also dropped by 10.53 points at the end of trading of the Colombo Stock Exchange today. Turnover was over 639 million rupees. And now here is a summary of market details of the Colombo Stock Exchange for today. And now with that news from the world of sports, we conclude tonight's news live on Channel I. Do join us tomorrow at the very same time.
Good night.